Welcome back, readers, to The Secret Lake. We're on Chapter 6, The Boy Thief. Oh, well, now how exciting. Do come and have a cool drink with us, said Miss Walker. At the mention of fluid, Tom perked up again. I'm sure the girls would love to hear all about Australia. Do you have a governess over there? They all trooped out onto the lawn. A governess? Oh, yes. Stella fixed another glare on Tom. Tom, his thoughts focused on cold juice, nodded solemnly. As they all helped Miss Walker move the rug and the pile of leather-bound books into the shade of a tree, Stella found herself glancing at the row of houses on the far side of the lawn. Is there something wrong? Said Sophie suddenly. Hey, there's our house, shouted Tom, pointing. What are you talking about? Said Sophie. That's our house. Stella laughed and quickly shook her head. Don't be silly, Tom. Our house is in Australia. She then clenched her teeth and gave poor Tom such a fierce look he thought he would burst into tears. So Australia, Miss Walker smiled as she handed round glasses of fruit juice poured from a jug under the tree. What's it really like over there? Tom looked at the ground in bewilderment. Stella felt her cheeks start to burn again. Try as she might, all she could picture was the shape of Australia, which she knew resembled a dog's head. Well, she faltered. An image of the Sydney Opera House popped uninvited into her head just as shouts came sailing across the lawn from the direction of the houses. They all looked up to see a man in a dark uniform and hat running towards them, closely followed by another man wearing rolled-up shirt sleeves and braces. A little farther behind came an elegant blonde-haired lady in a long yellow skirt and beautiful white blouse. You all right, miss? Wheezed the man in the uniform, looking all around. Miss Walker stood up in a fluster. Only there's been another theft. Crawley here saw a young ruffian in the garden, but he got away. Looks like he's run off with some silver. Mrs. Gladstone's coin purse is missing, too. She's in a right state. The man called Crawley arrived panting. He immediately narrowed his dark eyes at Tom. A good beating, that's what he'll get when I catch him. Tom felt his stomach twist into a knot. Finally, the beautiful woman called up, Sophie, Emma, thank goodness you're all right. Mama, shrieked Emma, jumping up with Sophie. Sophie and Emma's mother flung her arms around their two children, while Stella marveled at her flowing skirt and elaborate hair arrangement. The man in the dark uniform glanced down at Tom and Stella, then back at Miss Walker. It's a young lad we're after, about this one's age. He eyed Tom again. Tom swallowed hard and tried to look angelic. My goodness, who are these children, Miss Walker? Said Mrs. Gladstone. Immediately she freed Sophie and Emma from her grasp. They're Lucy Cuthbertson's cousins from Australia, and I guessed first, said Emma triumphantly. She told me they might be coming. I didn't know it would be so soon. Well, I have never seen anything like it in my life, said Mrs. Gladstone, peering down her nose. If that's how they dress their children in Australia, then all I can say is, look, I'm sorry to interrupt, ma'am, but if we want to catch this thief, oh yes, of course, do carry on, Constable. The policeman, for it was now obvious that this is what the man in uniform was, knelt down. Now this is important, and especially for you nippers. He looked at each of the children in turn, as if trying to see inside their tiny minds. Did any of yer see a boy in the gardens in the last hour? Looks kind of scruffy? Tatty brown clothes? Tom leaned forward, about to say something, and then felt Stella's sharp finger in his ribs. The children solemnly shook their heads in turn as the policeman counted round them again. Looks like he probably got away, he grumbled, standing up. Mrs. Gladstone gathered up her skirt and shot a cold glance at Miss Walker. Children, I'd like you inside, please, she said. I never did have much to say for studying in the garden, and we can't have you out here with a ruffian roaming the grounds, can we? The children's faces dropped. So Stella noticed, did Miss Walker's. Constable, I count on you to give this place a thorough search, twice over. Crawley, you go too. Yes, ma'am. Crawley bowed his head. The policeman delivered Mrs. Gladstone an icy smile, then headed off into the gardens with Crawley in his wake. Well, now, what are you two waiting for? Snapped Mrs. Gladstone. Tom and Stella scrambled to their feet. Gone, then. Off you go now back to Lucy's. And if I were you, I'd ask that mother of hers to lend you some half-decent clothes. You certainly can't be seen out in London dressed like that. Constance Gladstone then turned and marched off across the lawn with her children and their governess trotting behind. like sorry puppies. Chapter 7 next time will be called The Time Tunnelers.